White magic, the arcane art of succor, was conceived eras past that the world might know comfort. Alas, man began perverting its powers for self-gain, and by his wickedness brought about the Sixth Umbral Era catastrophe. Although the art subsequently became forbidden, it is now in the midst of a revival at the hands of the Pajal, chosen of the elements. Those who would walk the path of the White Mage are healers without peer, possessed of the power to deliver comrades from the direst of afflictions, even the icy grip of death itself. Before we begin, I'd like to take this time to thank all of our Patreons who made this video possible: Arianath, Chemistral, Christopher, David, Jelly, Michael, and Travis. Thank you guys so much for your support, and it's because of your support videos like this are possible. So thank you. And with that out of the way, let's do this thing. Hello White Mage, and welcome to my 101 Healing Guide. In today's video, we're going to cover a few things. One, damage skills overview. Really going to focus in on just White Mage abilities here. We're going to talk about cross-roll skills and another updated 101 Healing Guide, just kind of a general. We're going to then cover healing skill abilities. This is also going to be just focused in on White Mage. Then we're going to talk about kind of skills that kind of help you do what you do best. So that's kind of some buffs and things like that you can kind of help manage, just to make your attack and your healing abilities even more powerful and potent. And then general tips and tricks for healing. Just getting started with healing, we're going to talk about what you should be focusing in on, what you need to look out for. So with that, let's go ahead and do this thing. Just a quick note about your stats. I go into more depth about them for healers in my other two videos for both Summoner and Scholar, but I want to just kind of highlight a couple of summaries for those items here for you right now. Mind equals your healing and your damage up. Piety equals more MP, and this is a healing only stat. If you have to pick between critical hit and direct hit, just note that direct hit does not impact your healing ability, it only affects damage. So you're going to have to make up a choice as to what kind of healer you are. But with that out of the way, let's dive into the White Mage's offensive skill set and talk about it. So focusing first on the three elements that you're going to see as a theme for White Magic is wind, earth, and water. You want to throw in heart there just for sake of fun, then go for it. But in the wind category, you have Arrow, Arrow 2, and Arrow 3. At level 46, Arrow is upgraded automatically into Arrow 2. This is an instant cast ability. This is great for really trying to get some hits in there. It's got a potency of 50, and it's going to put a dot on the target that's going to last for 18 seconds. Arrow will automatically upgrade into Arrow 2. But at the base level spell, it's going to have a potency of 30 seconds on a dot that's going to last 18 seconds. The Arrow 2 upgrade upgrades the potency to 50. So if you let this dot run its course, the total potency for the upgraded Arrow 2 spell is going to be that of 300. Arrow 3 has its own dot that's applied, and it's also an AoE ability. This is great for mid-range as well as applying a dot to all targets. This is going to last for 20 seconds and has a dot potency of 40, which if you let it run its course is a potency of 320. Casting these abilities is going to be a great strength for you as a healer. First and foremost, getting comfortable with putting out damage while healing. The nice thing about these abilities is that, especially with Arrow 2, they're insta-cast, so there's not a lot of cast time. You're not going to run into the risk of choosing between healing and curing. These spells and dots are great, but you can see the potency isn't that strong, especially when compared to that of some of your other abilities. So let's go ahead and dive into your stone and basically your earth skills. The strength of the stone spell is that as you level up, it upgrades. First you have stone, and at level 18 that upgrades to stone 2, at level 54 that upgrades to stone 3, and then at level 64 that upgrades into stone 4. And the potency of the spell increases accordingly, going for stone at 140, stone 2 at 200, stone 3 at 210, and then stone 4 at 250. So assuming you don't need to stop doing damage, if you look at the amount of time that one of your dots, say Arrow 3 runs at 24 seconds for the entire dot, you should be able to cast at least 10 stone 4s during that time. Assuming that potency over time, coupled with this, can put you at around a 3000 potency kind of cycle, for each dot in and of itself. If you're going to look and compare this obviously to your Arrow abilities, is that your Arrow spell has got that dot and it's got that 320 potency over the course of 24 seconds. So with your dots and your stone ability, you can actually output a lot of damage. And that's one of the real strengths of this job. let's dive into your water element, which is Fluid Aura. This is an instacast ability, so it's off the global cooldown, and it's got a recast of 30 seconds. This deals a 15 Yam knockback, so basically this is a pushback effect with a bind. Now this bind is going to last for at least 6 seconds. This is a big change from Heaven's Word, where Fluid Aura used to do damage. In this case it does not, it is only a crowd control ability. I have found that this was not even really needed. The majority of enemies that can be pushed back, I don't need to push them back, and the enemies that I wish I could push back, I cannot push back in this regards. So, not trying to put too much opinion into this piece, but Fluid Aura just seems to be so situational, I wouldn't necessarily worry about it too much. Maybe there's something that you might find for it to be useful, but just note that it's no damage, it is just a knockback in this case, and most likely you're not going to need it, or when you do, it's just not going to work. And finally, let's talk about the big bomb, Holy. Holy deals unaspected damage to all nearby enemies with a potency of 200 for the first enemy, 10% less for the second, 20% less for the third, 30% less for the fourth, 40% less for the fifth, and 50% less for all remaining enemies. So that drops it from a 200 potency all the way down to a 100 potency effect. It has an additional effect of stun that's going to last for 4 seconds, and it costs 2400 MP at level 70. Despite the damage fall off that you see with the additional enemies, Holy is still a fantastic ability. It feels good. Coupling it with Swift Cast, you could end up getting a couple of these spells off, stunning the group, doing us some damage, and then retreating to the safety of being a ranged healer. If you're uncomfortable with the cast time, which does feel a little bit long, especially with the animation, feel free to couple this with Swift Cast and just get in the habit of being able to run in, put out a Holy whenever you can, and then retreat. Now, bridging the gap between our offensive abilities and our healing abilities, we have Assize. Assize is an instacast off the global cooldown with a 60-second recast. This is going to deal unaspected damage to all nearby enemies with a potency of 300, and it's going to restore your own HP and the HP of all nearby party members with a potency of 300. Plus, it's also going to restore an additional 10% of your own MP. When talking about running in for your Holy, Swift Cast, Holy, and then Assize before you have to bounce out is a great way to heal, do some damage, and recover some MP. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into your healing abilities. The White Mage has a ton of options when it comes to healing. Let's start with the classics: Cure, Cure 2, and Cure 3. So when we talk about healing, it's important that we talk about the potency per magic point. This is where you get a good understanding of the rating of what spell is giving you the best bang for your buck, and your buck being your MP cost. So Cure has a Cure potency of 450. It also has the additional effect that your next Cure 2 will cost no MP. Plus it says restoring HP of yourself or a party member will add a lily to your healing gauge. With Cure, I don't see that always happening, so I don't feel like it's 100%. I do see it happening all the time with Cure 2, but the wording here is just a little bit strange. So at an MP cost at level 70 of 600 with a Cure potency of 450, your potency per magic point is a rating of 1.3. That compared to Cure 2, with an MP cost of double that at 1200 and a Cure potency of 700, has a potency per magic point cost of 1.7. Every time I've cast a Cure 2, I see that the Lily is added to my healing gauge. I believe that actually is a fact of 100% for Cure 2, but if you look at the MP cost, if you're constantly casting Cure 2s, you're going to find yourself burning through a lot of MP needlessly. So now we have Cure 3, and this is kind of a little bit different. This restores HP of your target and all party member targets nearby that target. It has a potency of 550, but the MP cost here is 2280 at level 70. This gives it a 4.15 PPMP rating. We're going to come back to Cure 3 here in a little bit because there is ability you get at level 70 that has to do with Cure 3, so just kind of put a pin in this one. Next we have Regen, and this is such a class job defining ability. It's an instacast ability and it costs 840 MP at level 70. The potency of this is 150 and it's going to last for 21 seconds. So the total potency, if you let this spell run its course, is going to be 1050. At 1050, the PPMP of this is 0.8. So you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. This is your first real hot, learned at level 35. And what a hot is, it's that healing over time effect. It's going to constantly be healing your target, allowing you to put out arrow, put out stone, or heal another target. Then as we get into more AoE type abilities, you have Medica and Medica 2. These two spells are fundamentally different. Medica has a cure potency of 300 and an MP cost of 1680. So this is going to be a healing circle around you to all nearby party members. It's obviously not as strong as cure, but it's still quite important. This gets a 5.6 ppmp. Then you have Medica 2. This has a base cure potency of 200 and an MP cost of 2040. It also applies an additional effective regen to your entire party and stacks with regen. This has a cure potency of 50 and it's going to last for 30 seconds. So if you let this entire spell run its course, you're going to end up having a total potency of 700 and your ppmp cost is that of 2.5. So it's really efficient. But if you're only relying on that base 200 cure potency and you keep overriding the Medica 2 effect, you could easily see the ppmp jump up to 10.2. So it's not going to be very efficient. So I guess the rule of thumb is don't spam Medica 2. If everybody has it on them, then you're good. You can double stack this. If you have another White Mage healer in your group, you can stack Medica 2 on all your targets. It's not going to override one another. But if you're overriding your own Medica 2 effect, you're losing out on that MP and that magic potency for the cure. The White Mage also has a lot of insta-cast abilities. At level 60, you learn Tetragrammaton. This has a recast of 60 seconds and has a cure potency of 700. This matches your Cure 2 ability. Plus it costs no MP, so there's no ppmp rating here. It's just a free 700 potency cure every 60 seconds. Benediction with 180 second recast time will restore all of your target's HP. If they're 1, it will take them up all the way to 100% full. It's important to note that by the time you think you should cast Benediction, it is probably too late. Benediction has a horrible habit of going off right after the target dies, and thus it ends up getting applied to something like yourself where it's maybe not necessarily needed. At 180 second recast time, that's every 3 minutes. So get in the habit of feeling free to use this as just a base practice to getting used to its ability, because there's nothing more frustrating than when you want it to go off, you use the ability, you think you're in the clear, and for some reason it just takes an extra second to register and your target dies and then it's used on you and then you can't use it. Divine Benson. This is kind of the only damage preventing ability the White Mage gets. This costs no MP, has a recast time of 30 seconds, and instead it relies on your healing gauge, your lilies that we mentioned earlier, and your curing abilities. This will use all your lilies, whether it's 1 or 3, and those don't seem to have an effect on the ability itself. And the effect of this ability is that it creates a barrier around self or target that absorbs damage totaling 15% of that target's maximum HP. This can only be executed obviously with 1 lily on your healing gauge or more. Then you have Elysium. This is an ability I would highly recommend you macro, especially if you're using a controller. But this is a ground target ability. You're going to put a field on the ground that is going to heal over time. The cure potency of this ability is 100 and it's going to last for 24 seconds. So if you let it run its course, you're going to see a potency of around 800. With no MP cost, this is really efficient. And it does have a recast time of 90 seconds. This ability is learned at level 52 and it stacks with your Medica and your regen. In essence, you can end up putting out so much healing over time, and it's unmatched by any other job in the game currently. If you find yourself struggling, make sure that Elysium is in your rotation, that it is on the ground, but also that you're not moving, because it does require that your targets to stay within the field. It's not the largest field, but it's at least, somewhat decent in size. And the last healing ability I want to talk about is Plenary Indulgence. This restores your own HP and the HP of all nearby party members. This potency varies with the current confession stack, and it says 1 confession is 150, 2 confessions is 300, and 3 confessions is 450. Assuming your target has 3 confessions, you're adding on a free cure ability. Then it says party members including self are granted a confession each time you heal their HP via Medica, Medica 2, or Cure 3. This brings back the Cure 3 conversation, especially along with Medica or Medica 2. It says each time, but I haven't found that to be true. It seems to be still somewhat random when it's applied. So I've got targets that can have 1, they can have none, they can have 3. It really is kind of somewhat random. The confession duration also is only going to last 10 seconds. And plus, this can only be cast when at least one party member, including yourself, has at least one confession stack granted by you. This ability is really coupled with trying to get everybody restored, everybody back up. When you're casting Medica 2, Medica, Cure 3 to kind of really help fill everybody's life back up, you then want to use this ability. It has a recast time of 60 seconds, but in all honesty, the wording on this ability is a bit confusing because not everybody getting the confession stack adds that little bit more random. So I really don't rely on this ability. I do use it. It costs me no additional MP, so I have no complaints there. I'll try to save my opinion for a different video on this in the future, but at least you know what it does, and that's what's most important. Now that we've talked about your healing abilities and we've already talked about your offensive abilities, let's talk about a few abilities that really didn't make those two sections. The first one being Presence of Mind. This is on a 150-second recast time, so not that 3 minutes of Benediction, but this is a fantastic ability and it needs to be a part of your rotation. This is going to reduce your spell cast time and recast time and your auto attack by 20%, and it's going to last for 15 seconds. If you're familiar with Astrologian, this is not quite light speed, but this is a way to really get somebody up quickly. This is learned at level 30, so this is something that you don't necessarily want to keep using all the time, but it's not something that you want to constantly be afraid of using and save. If somebody needs healing and they need it quickly, Presence of Mind, and then start curing them. It's going to reduce a lot of your recast times for any of your instant abilities, but it's also going to reduce that time to cast Cure and Cure 2. And it could mean the difference between saving your tank or DPS and not saving them and having to use Raise. Raise is your resurrection spell. Should be fairly straightforward. This is going to how you can get a target up from death. The trade-off here is at level 70, it's going to cost you 3600 MP and it's going to take 7.6 seconds to cast. This is a very long spell, and in the heat of the moment, it can be very scary. You want to always try to couple this with Swift Cast, and I know I said we're going to talk about your cross-roll abilities in another video, but just as a pro tip, take Swift Cast. It's a great ability. You want to pair it with most of your abilities as a White Mage anyway. It just makes you more effective. You're welcome. The White Mage also has a crowd control ability called Repose. This inflicts your target with sleep and it's going to last for 30 seconds. If anything hits that target, they're going to wake up, and I don't find that I'm often using Repose. You learn this at level 26, and it's probably best to macro this command with some kind of marking over the target's head so that players will know if you specifically put a target to sleep, not to go and hit that target. Repose also pairs very well with Fluid Aura. That way you could push them back, bind them, cast Repose, and then not have to worry about them for a while. Finally, level 62, White Mage learns Thin Air. Instant ability, recast of 120 seconds, so roughly 2 minutes. This, for the next 12 seconds, reduces the MP cost of all spells to 0. Attack, healing, you name it. With Stormblood, White Mage and this ability feels like they have the option to be able to pump out a lot of healing and at the same time have much better MP management than they've ever had before. Their PPMP is really some of the best in the game. Their potency and their cures feel strong, effective, and their attacks feel like they are really hitting. The satisfaction of the animation for Stone 4 is really quite impressive. But that's the White Mage's abilities. We've talked about our attack, we've talked about our healing, we talked about some of our buffs and some miscellaneous abilities. So now let's go ahead and dive into general tips and tricks for learning and using White Mage. It's important to live by a few rules. Managing your MP is critical. If you run out of MP, you can't heal, and that is going to be when things get tough. So just keep an eye on that gauge. To help better manage your MP, don't spam Medica or Medica 2. If I was personally going to do it in any particular order, I would apply Medica 2 followed by Medica. But that's just my personal opinion. I like having that dot being applied and going off, and then using the additional curing power of Medica for that effect. However, Cure 3 is still more powerful than Medica, but it's more situational too because the AoE ability of Cure 3 is about the AoE around your target. So this is great from you at ranged, but if your party is spread out, Medica ends up being probably the best option. Medica, Medica 2, and Cure 3 all tie into that plenary indulgence. So getting your party back up from a big, massive, raid-wide attack, White Mages are, I think, some of the best at that job. You couple that with Asylum, you couple that with Regen, and all of a sudden you have so much healing going out the gate. Your weakness is you don't have a lot of shielding ability. Divine Benson fills that gap, but it's learned so much later in the game, you're going to really be relying more on your healing over time ability. And this ties into my next tip. Don't overheal. When your target is at 100% life, and if you're putting hots on them, if you're healing them, you're essentially using MP and you're not really gaining the benefit of it. You're also building up aggro, and depending on your party makeup, could be making your tank have to work harder and thus not go into more of a damage style rotation, and thus you're losing out on damaging abilities overall as a group. I don't want you to stress by that by any means. Your first and foremost goal, especially when getting used to healing in this game, is to get used to healing. But learn what your abilities do and kind of get a feel for who your party members are, especially your tank. You and your tank are going to have a special relationship. If they get nervous when their life falls below 50%, we'll make sure they don't fall below 50%. If they get nervous when their life falls below 75%, we'll make sure that you keep them topped off. But if they're okay and they're even fine and performing well when their HP is 30% or 40%, feel free to get into a comfort of putting out damage and then shifting into healing. There's always going to be a debate, and we can have that here or we can have it anywhere regarding should healers DPS. And honestly, at some point when you get so comfortable with healing and knowing these abilities, you might find yourself with a lot of downtime. Healing over time abilities means downtime for you, and that downtime could be used to heal other party members or to do something else. I personally say, yes, if you feel comfortable with putting out damage, do it. Get a comfort level with your attack abilities. If you don't have a confidence level, I would start with your arrow ability. It's got that insta-cast and it has that dot. Getting into a habit of cycling through your targets and applying that dot and then going back to your tank is a good start. If you check out my White Mage controller guide, I do have macros that allow you to remain targeting your tank and being able to focus your attack spells to whomever they are targeting. It allows you to stay focused in on the tank and allows you to then, your attack spells will go to your tank's target. And that could be a real help in learning the comfort of putting out damage, as well as learning to keep that left and right side mentality between healing and damage, to keep it in a good and constant learning state. To summarize all of what I just said and getting started in some tips with getting comfortable with healing, don't spam Medica. Another ability that we didn't really cover here is Insuna. That ability is cross-roll now, and whenever somebody gets applied with a dot, a detrimental effect like poison or slow, if you look at the debuff icon, you'll see a blue bar above it. That means Insuna can take that ability off that target. This is a great and really powerful ability. Now, if you see a debuff and you don't see that blue bar, it means you cannot. So keep an eye out on your party. You're the protector of the group. You're not taking the hits, at least hopefully, but you're responsible for keeping your party up. If somebody is attacking you, if you get hate or the tank misses an ad, run to the tank. Don't run away from the tank. Because if you do, the tank's going to have to chase you and he's going to have to chase the mob. And because you have a head start, chances are he's not going to be able to catch up to you. So whether or not you accidentally get hate or not, but if something is trying to kill you, go stand by your tank. If they are halfway decent, they will pick up that ad and keep them off you, thus keeping you alive and them alive as well. Anyway, that wraps up my White Mage Healing 101 guide. My name is Brian, and this is Work to Game. Thanks so much for watching this video, and we hope to see you in any of our others. Please let me know in the comments below if you have any questions or comments or tips for White Mages getting started in the world of Final Fantasy XIV. But with that, stay brave, stay strong, be smart out there, everyone. Take care.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Brian, you think there's anywhere they could catch us in the meantime?
Right now, Chris, we're probably on Twitch. If it's probably in the afternoon, it could be you. Sometimes you see my face. And we also found this random guy, named Kevin on the street somewhere.
I accidentally left my password written on the side of my car.
Oh, man. That was really a big mistake. But, guys, we really appreciate it if you guys hit the link in the description below for our Twitch page. We'd love to see you over there. And you can even subscribe to us over on Twitch.
If you're Amazon Prime, that could even be free.
Oh, my gosh. What a deal.
Well, cool. Well, thanks guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.